The degree to which Twitter was simply an arm of the government was not well understood by the public.
And it still isn't, right? Or at least people just act like it's not a big deal that the government was trying to tape our mouths shut, figuratively speaking, right? Because this is The Brink. And folks, remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you like me and you like what we do here. It means a lot. All of you guys that are subscribing, all of you guys that watch and don't subscribe, I appreciate you all so much. All right, so let's roll a tape of Elon Musk on the Joe Rogan podcast.
There was basically oppression of any views that would even, I would say, be considered middle of the road. But certainly anything on the right. I'm not talking about like far right. I'm just talking mildly right. The people like Republicans were suppressed at 10 times the rate of Democrats. Now that's because old Twitter was fundamentally controlled by the far left. It was like completely controlled by the far left.
You know why this was so frightening? Because had it not been for Elon, we would never know about this, right? About the deep state collusion. I mean, of course we would, right? Because we have all either seen it, we have been victims ourselves of this type of censorship, but there is half a country out there that not only never thought that what happened was possible, but they still don't even believe it happened, right? Despite all the evidence that the Twitter files have provided. And, you know, we didn't even need the Twitter files to know that Twitter wrongly suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop story. But the Twitter files showed that it was the FBI, something that our tax dollars pay for, that warned Twitter of a possible hack and leak operation by state actors to interfere in the election. And then Twitter goes and coincidentally suspends the New York Post for breaking the story under its hacked material policy, even though Hunter simply left his computer in possession of a repair shop owner for longer than he was supposed to. Our FBI somehow didn't know that was not Russian disinformation, but it wasn't just the Hunter story. You had average Americans, people like my dad, who spoke out about the COVID vaccine, others who said they were having side effects. And the White House was demanding that these people be censored. You were censored if you asked if a virus escaped from a lab, as if it was, some far-fetched idea, and as if Americans did not remember that in, 2004? That the SARS virus escaped from China, right? That it happened before. It's like this was just a hypothetical pulled out of, their behind. And, people always say the United States, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. The government has a very long and deep history of censorship, right? Specifically, censorship of people who either questioned the government or spoke negatively about it. And, it reminds me, if you go back to 1722, I know, very far time, but, Ben Franklin, he was 16 at the time, and his older brother James was thrown in jail for weeks because he published a bunch of critiques of the government, but he didn't publish who the author was. And the relevancy there is that over the last few years, we have had mass censorship of people who criticized people in the government, but also people who simply questioned the government. And then you think to President John Adams, right? You had the Sedition Act of 1798, which made it illegal to criticize the government unless you could defend those critiques in court. Now, obviously, it was tossed out, right? But it was important because the prosecutions really galvanized opposition to not only the act, but the Adams administration. And as a result, Thomas Jefferson won the presidency, right? He pardoned those who were prosecuted. But that's the difference. The public cared. They were angry, right? They were distrustful. They let their grievances be known. But today's public doesn't care. At least not enough, right? Not enough to affect change. Okay, yeah, there are lawsuits, Missouri versus Biden, but there is not enough public support in favor of free speech, in favor of protecting their fellow Americans when the government tries to strip them of their right. Have you ever known a society that doesn't want to fight fervently for their right? That is so complacent in being stripped of it. Our resilience as a nation is dependent on a spirited public that retains a very healthy amount of skepticism and distrust of the government. And without that, we're nothing, right? Speaking of distrust, what's equally important as distrust is accountability, okay? Demanding transparency. If the White House has the gall to demand that they, silence us, we should be able to demand transparency and accountability from our government on where our tax dollars are going. Because think about it. You are taxed on every single dollar you've ever held in your hand, okay? You earned it, you're taxed. You spent it at the store, you're taxed again. You buy a house, you're taxed the first time, and then you're taxed every single year because you own something. They are kicking you, right? They're trying to beat you until you're down so low because it's for our public benefit, right? But it's only fair then that you know where your tax dollars are going when the government comes around and takes your money, okay? So Republicans are demanding to know, what strategy the $114 billion in supplemental appropriations given to Ukraine is part of. What is the Biden strategy here? What is the administration strategy? Keep giving money another year, another 5 years, another 20? Or are we just supposed to wait for one of the most corrupt governments in the world to say, we don't want your money anymore? Because we all know that'll happen, right? We know it's not going where it should be. And I know most of us have had our fair share of suspicions, but a top aide to Zelensky, and this is just wow, literally admitted to Time magazine that the Ukraine government is so deeply corrupted and pocketing state funds at the highest level that the aide literally said, people are stealing like there's no tomorrow. They're stealing your tax dollars too, okay? The United States no longer has a vested interest in our people, okay? The strength of a nation relies on the people being willing to take part in this social contract with America, right? One that says, if we provide you X, if you provide us Y. And Y includes our tax dollars, right? But the X, well, that is the government's responsibility to the people of the United States. And we have become so okay with the idea that the government is not just the government for America, but the government for the world, because we want to feel good about ourselves, like we have some moral hierarchy, right? That we've lost the hawkish nature that we should have when it comes to our involvement in international affairs. Average American families, they bear the brunt of this, okay? And just yesterday, you had Secretary of State Antony Blinken telling lawmakers that we should, quote, anticipate that our humanitarian aid going to Gaza will fall into the hands of Hamas terrorists.
Can I promise you in this committee that there'll be 100% delivery to the designated recipients? No. There will inevitably be some spillage. We haven't seen it to date, but I think we have to anticipate that.
I should anticipate that you can't be responsible with my money? A government that will literally come after you if you don't get your taxes right, will toss you in the slammer if you don't pay. Can't guarantee that they're going to make sure our money doesn't go to terrorists who are then going to kidnap Americans? Those Americans have paid taxes to be kidnapped? If you cannot guarantee that my tax dollars will not be used to kill innocent people, to kidnap innocent people, don't use them. Okay, we owe those people in Gaza nothing. They can wait indefinitely for aid, right? I really don't care if they ever get aid. That's not my problem, okay? But it is my problem when my tax dollars are being used not only to slaughter innocent people, but kidnap Americans who have paid into our system. Our founders rebelled over a lot less than what is going on right now, folks, okay? But they were successful. Not because they had the equipment needed, okay? Because they were down bad sometimes, but because the public held such a deep amount of resentment towards government. But we don't anymore, right? We like our cushy state of affairs. We like Big Brother handling the finances, even if they're bad at it, because we've taken a back seat willingly. We are so caught up, everybody, in their personal lives, that we forget that the United States will exist long after we're dead. But only if we can preserve it, okay? And you cannot preserve a nation this great by focusing just on your 9 to 5 and your family, right? You need to focus on the country too. And until we do that, the spirit that was manifested in the late 1700s will never return. But that is a spirit that has guaranteed us freedoms, right? And if we lose any little bit of spark that we have of that spirit, the next generations will never know freedom. And look, my generation doesn't, right? I'm being censored left and right. The government's allowed to spy on me, right? I don't know true freedom. None of us know true freedom. But we can if you reignite that spirit, that spirit of resentment, of distrust, of hate, right? This is the purpose of my show, guys, The Brink. I truly believe we are on the brink of something big with America, because we cannot continue down the path we're on. We can't continue down the spending path. We can't continue down the path of how large the government has grown, right? We can't continue down the path of the encroachment upon our rights. We cannot continue down the path of complacency. So we are on the brink of something big. And we'll talk more about what's on the brink with us tomorrow, folks. You can tune in. This is a long episode, so I thank you for bearing with me. We'll see you tomorrow.